Everybody needs as much education you can shove down your throat. These are my 5 pillars of success. Number 2, if you go to Anthony's office, same as mine, books everywhere. Be obsessed with education. Family structure and resiliency. If you don't have a family, go find one. Role model, mentor, find a support area. Financial literacy, understanding how the system works. If your day's not about God or love, your day's about money. Understand how the system of money and free markets and capitalism works. If you don't work it, it's going to work you. Self-esteem and confidence. You need confidence through competence. Find something you love, something you're passionate about, and be the absolute best at it. Self-esteem, you got to learn to love yourself. You can't do that in one podcast. Basically, if I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not going to feel good about you. Last thing, role models in the environment. We model what we see. If you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. Anthony, I don't know how often people bring solutions to your podcast. I'm going to offer a solution today. If you have 3 of the things I just mentioned, I guarantee you'll be in the game called life. You have 4 of those things, which you can acquire on your own. I guarantee you're going to be successful.
Joining us now, best-selling author, entrepreneur, philanthropist. She's an amazing person, actually. John Hope Bryant. The title of the book, Financial Literacy for All, Disrupting Struggle, Advancing Financial Freedom, and Building a New American Middle Class. John, I think you're an incredible guy. I mean, I've been to your events, hear you speak. We've shared a television stage together. Let's go to your career, though. How did you get started? How did you grow up? Because I want to build that foundation first before I go into some of the ideas in the book.
Everything about me happened before I was 10. My deep background, my second great grandfather, George Young, was a slave and was one of 7,000 officers in Abraham Lincoln's Black Troop Division during the Emancipation Proclamation behind enemy lines. And he was in charge of protecting Memphis. And so I think that's where I got my social justice bones. My grandfather, R.B. Smith, born in 1871, was a sharecropper, which means that he was a businessman who, no matter how hard he worked, could not own the land that he was working on because he was financially disadvantaged by structure of the relationship in sharecropping. Sharecropping was arguably, that in conflict leasing was more damaging in Jim Crow laws than slavery itself economically. Because supposedly you were free, but you're also poor and no way to get out of it. And my dad owned a business and I'm an entrepreneur. And my grandmother, great-grandmother was a slave. My mother owned a shotgun shack. My mother bought and sold 7 homes with a high school education and an hourly rate job at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft, $15 to $17 an hour, $15 to $18 an hour, and bought and sold 7 homes. And I just bought and sold 700 homes, which was the Promise Homes Company, which my friend Tony Rester, Michael Arrighetti, and I stood up a company called Promise Homes, and I sold that company 2 years ago on Christmas Eve for $121 million. And I'm about to enter into another partnership to grow some other affordable housing stuff I'm doing away from SFR. So that's the business world. But really, that's a sense of yes. My mother told me she loved me every day of my life. So a sense of yes, I am my mom. Yes, I can, my dad. So I didn't have a self-esteem problem. Very much like you, I had high confidence. I had high self-esteem because I had good bones in my family world. So that's where the quote comes from, Anthony, that to be broke is economic, but to be poor is a disabling frame of mind, a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never, ever, ever to be poor again. And so I was broke, but I wasn't poor. And my mom and dad divorced when I was 5 over money. I saw domestic abuse when I was 5. My mom went to go live with a relative, quotation marks, who really wasn't a relative, but she told me that they were related, so I wouldn't be afraid. She was saving money to buy her first home. And I saw the guy who saved my life living in that house, murdered in front of me over money. selling drugs. That was 7 years old. His name was OC. And when I was 9, my best friend George was murdered down the street with my next door neighbor over drugs, over money. All this is in the book. And so by the time I was 9 years old, I was completely focused. How do I get out of the hood alive? And can I take some people with me alive? And so this white banker, and I say that because there was no white man in Compton with a suit on unless it was a detective, and it wasn't a very good suit. This guy had a great suit. He had on a Scaramucci suit. I mean, this dude was smooth.
Like the one I'm wearing right now.
Well, when you're as rich as you can wear dresses any way you like. All my rich friends.
I'm just trying to catch up to you. First of all, congratulations on all that. But there's something about you. It's not just the self-esteem. There's a rock that hit you in the head. Something happened to you. I can tell you what it was for me. It was my parents really wanted me to be educated, and my dad cashed in. And I said this on another podcast. My dad cashed in his union life insurance, so he got the term. He termed out on it. He got the cash value of it. It was $10,000. I think it was $150,000 policy, John. Yeah. Upon his death, it would have went to my mom, but he cashed it out. He gave me 10 grand to help me get started in college. Yeah. And I thought, okay, I can't blow this for him. He's giving up his life insurance for me to go to college, so I'm not going to blow this. So that was a big day for me. That was like my epiphany. Did you have one? You obviously did have one. When was it? What was that day where you said, you know what? I'm going to be a huge success. I'm going to be unshakable in terms of what's going to happen to me in my life.
Yeah, probably 3 or 4. One, my mother told me she loved me every day of my life. Mm-hmm. So I never had a self-esteem problem. And she was never told she was loved. So this is a big deal. She told me, it made me believe that I was lovable. So self-esteem, I didn't realize how important it was. It's probably my biggest asset today is it's okay if you don't like me, I like me. Like I walk in the room and I take no for vitamins, just like you. And success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. Like I don't focus on the 98 no's, I focus on the 2 yeses. Like I'm unshakable. My resilience is probably my best quality beyond my self-esteem. And those 2 things are probably connected. I just never give up. So that was my mother. And then my work ethic came from my dad. And then my intelligence about finance and how to get out of tough situations from the shoulders up versus from the neck up versus the shoulders down. Most poor people, they operate fight, flight, struggle. I'm going to beat you up, whatever. But again, by the time I was 9 years old, I realized that stuff didn't work. And so I'm looking for a different strategy. I'm looking for a mooch strategy, right? And so this white banker comes in my classroom and teaches us financial literacy. And I slowed this down, Anthony. I mean, I really slowed this moment down because the kids were like throwing paper planes and all kinds of stuff. I was focused, man. Probably because of my background and what I told you happened. Excuse me, sir. He came in once a week for 45 minutes. Excuse me. What do you do for a living? Stop the curriculum, financial literacy. Stop the questions and answers for a minute. Excuse me, I have a question. What do you do for a living? And how did you get rich legally? And Anthony, I was dead serious. Like legal hustle in the hood didn't exist. What do you do for a living? I've never seen somebody with a business card. I don't know anybody on the 16th floor of anything. Compton has 6 floors. That's the courthouse. I don't know anybody who is on a salary who can come in the middle of the day into my school. You have a car in the parking lot with a tag on it. It's brand new, and you own it legally. Like, who, what, where? You have a nice, beautiful suit on. Clearly, you're balling. I'm a banker and I finance entrepreneurs. Man, like you could have hit me over the head with an anvil. Okay, I've never heard the word entrepreneur in my entire life. I'm 9 years old. What is it? And if you're financing it and it's legal, I'm going to be one of those. And so that's who I am today. But then After that, I then asked, by the way, are there more people, are there more entrepreneurs, are there more bankers in the country? I know your audience is like, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. And they need to understand that to this day, this is half of America. To this day, this is what I'm describing now is half of America. I said, are there more people like you, bankers, who it's your job to lend poor people money? And I don't get dead if I don't pay you back, right? He says, yeah, there's probably, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of bankers. He was with Bank of America. There's 250,000 at Bank of America alone. I said, my God. So basically that's Operation Hope today. I mean, Operation Hope is the largest financial literacy coaching organization, as you well know, in the country. And thanks for your help. 1,500 branches in 48 states. $75 million operating budget, 4-star Charity Navigator rating for a charity, the best you can get, the cleanest you can get. Most of the dollars going to help people. $4.5 billion of capital deployed, raising credit scores, lowering debt, increasing savings so people can become bankable. And so all that came from that childhood experience. And then, of course, I had my first business when I was 10 years old. My mom invested $40 in me. And I gave her a return on that, which was I was going to be successful and keep my nose clean. So I made her proud and homeless when I was 18. So by the time I was 18 years old, I was economically homeless, not homeless like most people, which is mental health and substance abuse, which is tied, I think, to the mental health. We've made some policy decisions which put most people with mental health issues out on the street on their own. It was not a good decision, and we have a homeless crisis in this country that's manufactured in many cases. And mine was self-manufactured. I could have went to go live with my mom and my dad, but I didn't. But then they would have forced me to go get a job. I made some choices that didn't work out. I had to live in my car, and I worked until I could work myself out of living in my car. And so that was 18 years old, and then I had a business success from 19 to 23, did a management buyout of a company I built for $20-something million. Riots happened in 1992. I take all of my business skills up to that point and scale up Operation Hope to basically do what I wrote about in this book, which is now, by the way, #1 on Amazon still in business finance, financial literacy for all, which is to make financial literacy the civil rights issue of this generation. So everybody has a calling. You've got one for sure. You're a truth teller on Wall Street. You're about inclusive capitalism. You're about opportunity for all. You're about social justice through free enterprise, just like me. We're brothers from other mothers. You've found a brand, and that is uniquely you. And I found a brand and a mandate and a mission that is uniquely me, the leader of inclusive economics, and open source capitalism, the people's capitalist for the country. And when CEOs of Fortune 500 companies call me a conscience on capitalism on CNBC, that is probably my greatest compliment in the business sector.
Are you a yo-yo dieter? You diet, you lose weight, but gain it all back plus a few extra pounds. Then later, you lose it and regain it again and again. It's dangerous. Studies show that increase your risk of heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and other health problems. Breaking free of your yo-yo diet pattern is a main reason doctors created Lean. Lean is a supplement, not an injection, and you don't need a prescription. The science behind Lean is impressive. It studied natural ingredients that target weight loss in 3 powerful ways. Lean helps maintain healthy blood sugar, it helps control appetite and cravings, and it helps burn fat by converting fat into energy. Listen, if you're tired of losing weight and gaining it back, if you want to lose meaningful weight at a healthy pace, Lean was created for you. Let me get you started with 20% off when you enter Open Book 20 at takelean.com. That's code OpenBook20 at takelean.com. Well, I love all that, and I've been to your events, and you are a force of nature, and you are changing people's lives. And I read the book, which was very easy to read, by the way, and it encapsulates a lot of your life, and frankly, my life, and lots of people that you're talking to. So, I wanna ask you about the ingredients for success, and you know you got lucky. I got lucky. Your mother loved you. My mother loved me. Some people are less lucky, John. They get born in different circumstances and they get born behind the eight ball. A parent could be in prison. A mother could be addicted to drugs, God forbid. There's a whole host of things that you and I have seen in our lives where people are starting out differently than the way you and I did. Because again, we had no money, but there was a lot of base material that we could grow off of.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is, how do you help somebody that's off of a different base material?
Well, one thing about you and I, Anthony, we never give up. Like, over the round and through it, we'll just get to it. Success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. We're always enthused. We're always positive. We're always resilient, and we never give up. So all good. So this video was, everyone was starting at the same place. It was black and white and male and female at this race for 100 yards for $100. And this guy was just saying, if you had two-parent households, take 2 steps forward. If you grew up in a neighborhood where you weren't afraid of the police, take 2 steps forward. If you had a home that your family owned versus rental, take 2 steps forward. If you knew you can go to college and you weren't going to be buried in debt, take 2 steps forward. If you had a mentor, a role model, or tutor. And by the way, they looked around, it was almost all Caucasian, middle-income family, children, mostly men, at 2/3 way through the race. I mean, up on the course before the race started. The guy said, and I love this part, I'm still going to honor this $100. I'm going to say go. Whoever gets here first gets $100. But I want you to turn around. And I want you to see who's back at the starting grid. Now, most of them are young black men. Now, I'm going to say go. And I'm going to give whoever gets here $100. And you'll probably win. But these guys back there will probably smoke some of you, even the ones who have an advantage. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll know that if you started on the starting line with them, they would have smoked you in the first 25 yards. But you start with an advantage. Just realize when you succeed, turn around and offer that $100 or $25 or $5 or $1 or an internship or an apprenticeship or an interview to somebody else who didn't start at the same place as you did. It's not a handout. It's a hand up. And you're right that your zip code is, in many cases, determines your destiny. People don't realize, Mooch, Steve Jobs, a Jordanian immigrant, his daddy was Jordanian. People don't realize this. The grandfather, the parent of the mother of Steve Jobs, did not want him. Put him up for adoption for a wealthy parent, a wealthy family. The wealthy family accepted him and rejected him. So the backup option at the last minute was the Jobs family in Silicon Valley. And God bless him, Anthony, that this was a family in Silicon Valley, middle class, in the middle of the tech boom that was coming. And around the corner was a guy who was a tech genius, who became the co-founder of Apple, who became his engineer, his coder for what's now become one of the most important companies in the world. But what if he had also been adopted alternatively with some single parent mother on the south side of Chicago? He'd become the biggest drug dealer the world's ever seen, maybe. His talent wouldn't have not been denied him, right? But he wouldn't have met the co-founder of Apple, who was a tech coding genius, and he wouldn't have had a stability of family. So I think that what I try to say is that we all have, and to quote Michael Milken, we have equal potential, but not equal opportunity. And what I try to do with inclusive economics is to provide a level playing field for everybody. I believe that financial literacy is a civil rights issue of this generation. I believe if Dr. King was alive today, this is what he'd be doing. I believe that that the diversity is a business strength, not a moral issue, and no one's doing somebody a favor, is literally smart. Like women did not have the right to vote. Sorry, did not have the right to could not get a credit card or bank account in 1972. Not black women, not Latino women, not immigrant women. White, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, well-educated, 1972, could not get a bank loan, credit card, without their husbands co-signing. Well, thank God that changed, and now women are a third of the GDP for this country today. A third of the economy are women. What would have happened if we had made the wrong choice? So we're at this inflection point in the country where we need everybody in the boat rowing toward GDP, unless we want to speak Mandarin in 10 years. And we are the light on the hill, America. This is something you and I fight for. We send text messages to each other all the time, talking about just trying to make sure that America is there to win. But everybody wants to be an American today, but Americans, like, we're throwing rocks at each other. And there are 4 countries that love it: Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. They love that we're in a food fight, a family food fight. And we've got to knock it off. And we got to find something we can all be for. That's more interesting than what we're against. And I believe financial literacy can be the foundation for a new compact where we all see we have an enlightened self-interest in additional economic growth from the bottom up.
So there's a crisis going on in American males. They're 4 times more likely to commit suicide than an American woman. That's black, white, Hispanic. I'm talking about males of all color and ethnic backgrounds. What do you think that's about, John?
Depression and loss. Depression, self-esteem, and lost purpose. Look, religion for a long time held us together. Then they took prayer out of the school. And spirituality has always held us together, but no one talks about that anymore either. And I think we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. I don't know your religious background, Anthony. I know you're very spiritual. You radiate energy of compassion, empathy, and togetherness. That is a spirituality. You're about more than just the dollar. And you combine the lack of religion structure, the lack of spirituality, or the decaying of spirituality, and the lack of purpose. Because maybe if you're a poor white in this country, the Industrial Revolution walked away from you, and no one replaced that with a business plan called the future. So the number one group dying in America for a long time have been high school educated white men. Little known fact. It's opioid addiction on the surface, but in reality, it's depression. You have a crisis of young black men, different reasons, but I think same cause. Like 70% of all black households run by women. That depresses a man. If you can't be in the house, take care of your children, have enough economic activity to feel like you're the breadwinner, you bounce, you leave, and then you start taking out your frustrations on the world. And it becomes a self-manifest destiny. If people don't believe in you, don't have high confidence in you, you start not having confidence and belief in yourself. And so I think that in some ways women are more blessed because they're more emotionally wired. So they're at least and they have an intuition. Like when I walked in your office, I believe it was Holly I met when I walked through the bullpen to get to you. She checked me out spiritually in 30 seconds. And we didn't talk a lot, but there was a smile, there was a warmth. She's like, okay, he's a good dude. I'm like, she's good people. And it was not a verbal, it was unconscious. And women do that intuitively. They can read people. And men don't do that. So men are trapped in what they do for a living. Their whole purpose, their meaning is tied up with what they do and who they are. And if they don't have that, then I believe they start questioning life itself. And look, there's a fear now, unfounded, that whites are being discriminated against, white men are being discriminated against in the economy. I don't. It's an irrational fear. I don't understand it. It doesn't bear out any of the facts, but it's driving some politics, by the way. And we've been here before. We were here in what I call the second Reconstruction after the Civil Rights Movement. There was a fear that blacks and others were moving too fast, and there was a backlash against that. That brought on Nixon, and there was a lot of things that happened. Actually, Nixon created affirmative action, little known fact, but they didn't want blacks to benefit from it. That's why women got the break on affirmative action, by the way, and white women, by the way, God bless them. You had a backlash after Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. There was a fear that blacks were making too much progress, and so the president after him reversed all that Lincoln had did when he was assassinated and stopped Reconstruction. And here we are again, post a lot of stuff, post Obama, post George Floyd, whatever you want to pick, whatever marker you want to pick. Oh my God, the world's out of balance. There's too much going on. These folks, they're going to ruin the country, whatever that means. There's not enough college educated. God has a sense of humor, Anthony. There's not enough college educated, successful white men to drive future GDP for 30 years. It's never happened. That's never been statistically possible to say until now. And that's not a racial comment I just made, by the way. It's mathematic. I like math. It doesn't have an opinion. There's not enough successful college educated white men, if all of them are on the field of economic activity, to keep America at the top of GDP and as a superpower based on economic activity. You need women, you need minorities to also be rowing the boat. It's never been statistically accurate that you needed a diversity of minorities to create a majority of economic prosperity for the future. And that's going to force us to become a family again. And if we do it right, it'll repair the ladder at the bottom for poor whites, for struggling middle-class families, for black men who are looking for a purpose in their life. Whoever you are, there'll be an opportunity for you to contribute if we get this business plan right for the next 30 or 40 years. If you deal with class, you get race for free.
So, I'm with you on all of this stuff, and I think the book is very relevant for the people that you and I grew up with. I guess what worries me, John, is there's not a lot of John Hope Bryants out there. I guess what worries me is when I think about national mentoring. I've done it in a small way. I've been in the Big Brother program. I've been in the national mentoring program. I've talked to Professor Scott Galloway about developing a broader umbrella to help people.
Yeah.
But, what would your message be? We have a lot of young people that listen to this podcast, and I know you have a lot of young people that listen to you in general because you're like a human aspirational laboratory. What is the message for young people in terms of them getting access to the American dream?
By the way, on that point, Anthony, I get about 1 million views a week online on my social media. And I'm told that my biggest audience are young black men, 18 to 35, looking for a mentor, a role model, a business plan for their life. I thought you were going to ask me a different question. Both of these questions, one I thought you were going to ask and one you ask, are very interesting and very relevant. I thought you were going to ask me a tougher question, which is what do the policymakers, irrespective of who is in charge, what do adults, what is whoever's writing the business plan for the future, what are the few things they should do to ensure that we have a future economy? But the easier question is, what does somebody young look at today? The answer is the future. You look at your phone as something other than entertainment. This is a computer. This used to take up the entire office where Anthony, right behind Anthony, he's got a beautiful suite there. This 30 years ago, would have taken up the entire office, certainly 40 years ago. Now, this is in your hand. It is a microcomputer, but we treat it as an entertainment distraction device. Artificial intelligence is going to change everything. I'm co-chair of the Financial Literacy for All movement with Doug McMillan, the CEO of Walmart. I'm co-chair of the AI Ethics Council with Sam Altman, the Steve Jobs of this generation. Because I believe these are two platforms that are going to fundamentally reshape everything. I would say find yourself some hustle. Find a niche like Anthony and I did where no one's paying any attention to, and bring value to it. If everybody's going left, I want you to think about going right. I don't mean politically, I mean aspirationally. If everybody's going to the club and hanging out and spending hours a day on social media talking about somebody else, whatever they're doing, try doing the opposite. And success, and Anthony's never, and we never talked about this, but I'm going to ask him this question if he agrees. My wife says all behavior is learned behavior. And I say all success is good habits. Or most of success is good habits and relationship capital. So if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. So find a John Hope Bryant, find an Anthony Scaramucci, find a Tony Rester, find a Michael Arrighetti, find a hero or a shero that you have access to or can have access to, and get 15 minutes on their calendar and impress them. And don't take any more than 15 minutes. If they offer you more, fine. But if they offer you an hour, take 30 minutes and leave them to go back and then come back a month later. You need a role model. You need a mentor. You need a roadmap. You need something that is a North Star for you, a mission, a mandate, a purpose, a passion, a business, an idea you own. And I want you to pursue it with all your gusto, and I want you to be absolutely obsessed with education. You asked me earlier about the things that are required in success, and we got distracted with some tech issues. So let me answer those questions because it's the same answer. Everybody needs as much education you can shove down your throat. These are my 5 pillars of success. Number 2, if you go to Anthony's office, same as mine, books everywhere. As much education as you can shove down your throat. Be obsessed with education. Number 2, family structure and resiliency. If you don't have a family, go find one. That's why I said role model, mentor, find a support area. Financial literacy. We were talking about that. Understanding how the system works. If your day's not about God or love, your day's about money. Understand how the system of money and free markets and capitalism works. If you don't work it, it's going to work you. Self-esteem and confidence. You need confidence through competence. We talked about that. Find something you love, something you're passionate about, and be the absolute best at it. Self-esteem, you got to learn to love yourself. We can't do that in one podcast, but basically, if I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not going to feel good about you. If I don't love me, don't expect me to love you. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm going to make your life a living hell. Whatever goes around comes around. Last thing, role models and environment. We model what we see. If you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. Anthony, if you have, I don't know how often people bring solutions to your podcast. I'm going to bring one. I'm going to offer a solution today. If you have 3 of the things I just mentioned, I guarantee you'll be in the game called life. You have 4 of those things. You acquire 4 of those things, which you can acquire on your own. I guarantee you're going to be successful. And anybody listening to this, I want you to be as focused on your credit score as your 4-year education degree. You need both. But if you have a 700 credit score, you have a 700 credit score rating. You have self-esteem and confidence. You have education. I'm just picking 3 of the 5. And you have, decent role models in the environment. Or pick any 3 plus the bonus of credit score. You're going to kill it. Because your idea you have now you can get access to credit, because at midnight when you go to the computer don't care whether you're white, Jewish, black, Arabic, whatever. At a 700 credit score on a modest credit line, computer's going to say yes, 750 for sure. So now you have access to seed corn, capital, to grow your idea or your business. But you need 3 of those 5 things, preferably 4. I had all. Did I have all 5? I acquired all 5. Mm-hmm. You acquired all 5. education, financial literacy, family structure and resiliency, role models and environment, and I missed one. I'm doing this by memory. Education, financial literacy, family structure and resiliency, self-esteem and confidence, role models and environment. There you go.
All right. Well, I love you for all this. I'm going to read out 5 words, and every one of my podcasts ends the same way. John, I'm going to read you 5 words, and then you're going to give me a 1 or 2 sentence reaction to the words. They're all based on your book. The first one is finance. I say the word finance. You say what?
Literacy.
Okay.
It's what you don't know that you don't know that's killing you, but you think you know. And if you don't work it, you. Go ahead.
I say the word America. You say what?
Promise.
Okay. Freedom.
For all.
Hope.
You and me. Everybody. Right. Everything.
What about
business? America.
What about John Hope Bryant?
God's child. Your friend. Humble servant. Unfinished work. Always hustling. Resilient.
I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to add anything to that other than the fact that I love you. I appreciate you coming on. The title of the book is Financial Literacy for All, Disrupting Struggle, Advancing Financial Freedom, and Building a New American Middle Class. Thank you, my friend, for being a part of this with me.
Thank you for being an American soldier, an American role model, I think a hero in this generation. The history books will record that you were here and that you had your shoulder against the wheel of democracy and opportunity, fighting for what's good and what's right. And you've lived an outsized life of aspirational opportunity, and many, many millions are inspired by you, Anthony. And one of those millions is your friend, John O'Brien.
You know, what's interesting about both of us, and I'll just say this before we end, is that we both grateful. Yeah. We both realize how improbable our lives are. I'm not going to say undeserved because you've worked your ass off, as have I, but you know a lot of luck has to come into this thing to make you who you are. And so I think we're both humbled by that. And but anyway, I appreciate you being on.
There's powerful identities now, left, right, red, blue. And I think what draws those identities together is a sense of what the threats are in the world and a sense of who the victims are. And, we are the victims in our mind more than we're the perpetrators, right? We morally typecast ourselves as righteous victims, suffering from the evil policies of someone else. Now, the interesting thing about these kind of figures is that many people think of them as villains, but I think they often think of themselves as victims. And that drives people who like them to feel like victims too, right? So Putin, has famously said, talk about this in the book, how he is a victim. He's a victim of the West. He's a victim of these conspiracies. He went to war against an innocent country and killed ex-KGB officers, like in hospitals in foreign governments, right? Like he's done all sorts of terrible things. And he says, look, I'm the victim here. And so I think what that highlights, one, is the power of victimhood, or at least its expression to draw people together. And two, how victimhood is a matter of perception, right? Like you can get people who survived the Holocaust think of themselves as less of a victim than Putin or than someone who got, their order messed up at Starbucks.
This is Open Book. I am your host, Anthony Scaramucci. Joining us is Professor Kurt Gray. He's a professor in psychology and neuroscience at UNC Chapel Hill. The title of the book is Outraged: Why We Fight About Morality and Politics and How to Find Common Ground. What a topical book. I probably needed this book in 2016. Maybe I needed it in 2008. Goes way back for me, Professor Gray. But let's talk, before we get into the book, let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to that beautiful university, Michael Jordan's campus down there. Tell us a little bit about your odyssey to UNC Chapel Hill.
Sure. So I grew up in Calgary, the Texas of Canada. So growing up in a progressive country, but in a more conservative province. And then I had a bunch of experiences that really made me focus on this topic. Like when I was 5, my dad married my stepmom. She comes from a big evangelical family in Nebraska. I went down as a Canadian kid, a foreigner, a step kid. They opened their arms to me. And later, when I went down there, I thought we agreed about everything, swimming in the pond, playing in the hayloft, all awesome. But as I got older, I realized that we disagreed about a number of things, gay marriage, right, being one of those things. And yet I couldn't just say that they were evil or stupid because I knew they were good people. I knew they loved me, knew they were thoughtful. And so that kind of kicked off a lot of my research on the moral mind, how we can disagree about things and yet still be good people. And that kind of what motivated the research that feeds into the book.
Well, listen, I've been in the crosshairs for a decade, so everybody dislikes me, Professor. Maybe you could be my therapist for a moment. The Trumpers hate me because I left Trump. The Democrats will never accept me because I was with Trump, and I get shot at in every different direction. But I think something happened in the society. There was a break in the society somewhere. Like I don't know. I've been a supporter of gay marriage here in New York. I helped Andrew Cuomo get that law passed as a Republican. I funded state senatorial campaigns for that to happen. My attitude on gay marriage is people should be able to live their truth, and whatever it is that their truth is, we should be accepting of it and be loving about it, and that's it. And I applauded Barack Obama as a Republican when he tried to nationalize gay marriage. He was successful in nationalizing it. But now there's a backlash. There's a backlash against progressive ideas, a backlash against what people derisively call wokeism. Donald Trump represents that with his sort of orange evangelism. And so what happened, though? Why can't we live and let live? Like, why your lifestyle, and I mean this with no disrespect, I'm completely indifferent to it, sir, as I would hope you're indifferent to my lifestyle. I want you to be happy, and God bless you. Why can't we be that way, sir? What is it about all of us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a change that's been happening for a long time. So, I talk about in the book how, we evolved as a species being preyed upon a lot more than we think. We evolved being a lot more afraid than we think. It's why our kids fear the dark, right? It's why we think there's something under the bed. It's why if you're going out to walk at night and you're walking through a dark alley, you get a little nervous, even if you're big and tough, right? We fear all sorts of things. And now that society's safer, we don't get eaten by wild animals. There's less crime than there used to be. Now we have the space and the mental bandwidth to worry about threats that are more cultural,
good point.
More like culture wars. And so I think that's what
we've taken this tribal territorial survivalism and we've channeled it into things that are a little bit more petty.
Yeah, or just that we agree are not often matters of life and death, although they may be to some, right? And so we're just like more about like, is what you write on social media, is it terrible? Is cancel being terrible? These things that if we told someone 200 years ago, they'd think, you're arguing about what?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And social media, as you point out, it's affecting us, right? We're getting algorithmically channeled into reinforcing our ideas. We're finding things on the algorithm pays for outrage. They have found that if you feel outraged, Professor, or I feel outraged, we stay on the channel longer. We'll doom scroll the channel. So we do that, right? We're both. I'm a victim of that. I'll confess that. I don't know if you're
all human.
Yeah, I do it. And so, is there a way to back out of that? Or is there a way to paint? Is there an optimistic future that we can all have here? That's a big central thesis of your book. How do we find that common ground among all of us?
Yeah, so I think there is optimism, and I think most people in America don't like being angry. They don't like yelling on social media, even if we feel compelled to keep scrolling because we're on X and Facebook and those algorithms keeps us scrolling. Most people don't want to be angry and they don't want to be on that. And then the book's central thesis is really about, well, how do we make sense of common ground? And I think to do that, we need to understand how our minds work. And what they really focus on when it comes to morality are questions of harm, questions of who's being victimized and by whom. And I think when we recognize how each of us kind of understands the harms and the victimization in the world that we see, it allows other people to kind of figure out, get inside our head and find some common ground. And so I say in the book, if you want to understand people's moral judgments, ask yourself, what are the harms that they see?
Okay. I've got to test a few things on you based on some of the foundational principles in your book. You say in the book that we're the same. We conservatives, liberals, we have sort of the same moral foundation, but we're different in terms of the perception of what harms are in a society. So give us examples of that. Explain it. Maybe give us an example through a controversial topic like immigration, or an even more controversial topic like abortion.
Right.
How do we size up and how do we relate?
Yeah. So the nice thing about this understanding of harm as the kind of basis of morality is that it allows us to understand every hot button issue that's out there. And not just a hot button issue in politics, but also arguments with our spouse or a coworker. It's always about who's victimized and who's vulnerable. Immigration. Progressives are worried about the harm that migrants face at the border. They're fleeing violence in their home country, and they're getting victimized at the border by ICE, deportation. On the other hand, conservatives, right, they're worried about the harms to citizens, people taking jobs, people coming into the country, dealing drugs, perpetrating crimes, right? Those are the concerns. Abortion, right? Progressives are worried about harm to women who can't choose their reproductive rights care, things like this. More pro-life folks worried about fetuses and their kind of suffering, right? And underlying these things, it's not a different kind of concern about health or well-being. Everyone's concerned about helping people thrive, right? About protecting the vulnerable, but there's different assumptions about who or what is most vulnerable to harm.
Okay. I love it. Take it a step further. Talk about moral typecasting, where we tend to see people as either heroes or villains or victims. Why do we put people in those buckets? And what is, when I say the words moral typecasting, what does it mean to you?
Yeah. So we typecast all sorts of folks in Hollywood based on their roles. So if you see Daniel Radcliffe, your first thought's going to be Harry Potter, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But we also typecast people into moral roles as either villains or as victims. And then once they get that moral role, it's sticky. So you talk about, Republicans and Democrats both kind of giving you grief, right? Those folks have maybe typecast you more as a villain than a victim. I don't know, right? But certainly when we perceive others, think Brian Thompson, right? The CEO of United Healthcare. Many people, especially progressives, saw him as a villain, right? Mm-hmm. As profiting off the suffering of people who couldn't afford healthcare treatment. When he was murdered, people's opinions stayed the same, right? They still saw him mostly as a villain and just wrote off his murder as something to celebrate or something we shouldn't worry about because he was rich, right, and powerful. And so that's moral typecasting. It's the stickiness. If you know someone in your life, right, who seems to be always victimized, then when they do something bad, you don't see them as responsible, as blameworthy. But if you see someone who's like bad and then they're harmed, you kind of ignore that. And so every kind of court case comes down to kind of who's the victim, right? Like Amber Heard, Johnny Depp, right? The question is like, who's the villain, who's the victim? And once you pick someone as your villain, then the other person seems like the victim and vice versa, right? So these are really powerful roles in our mind.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we do that with everybody, though, don't we? Don't we do that with our family members sometimes? We do it with our staff or fellow employees. We do it with our neighbors. Isn't it something we do with everybody, or is it?
Yeah, we do it with everyone, especially those we don't know really well. All right, so if it's your mom, it's your dad, it's your kid, it's your cousin, you don't typecast them quite as much because you know they're complex. Although you can still get there, right? Like maybe your dad, he says some stuff, he does some stuff, right? In your mind, he's always going to be the villain. Let's say he cheats on your mom. It's an act that you think is so beyond the pale that now even when your dad's suffering or he's sad, you're like, well, it's your fault, Dad, right? It's like you shouldn't have done this and you can't be victimized. So you can certainly do that with your family. It's a little more harder because you know their complexities, but I do think we do it with everyone. There's that person at the PTA meeting, they are always sad and you're like, oh, they're a victim, right? I wish that other parent wasn't so mean to them.
Well, my adult kids are still doing that to me, Kurt, so I'm fine with it. It is what it is. You can't really escape that, And by the way, kids side with their mom. I mean, I know you're the shrink here, and I'm just the podcaster, but kids side with their mom. They don't give a shit about that. I mean, if you get into a fight with the mother, they're running towards the mother, and then anything comes out of her mouth is the gospel. Anything comes out of your mouth is a lie. It's just the way it is, and so it's fine. That'll be for another podcast when you write the book about how to deal with the. That's a bestseller, by the way. Tell the typecasting of the ex-husband.
There you go.
All right. So we've had the social media play a huge role. Okay, but you're also saying in the book that we have these figures in our life: Vladimir Putin, Elon Musk, Donald Trump. I could name them. Mark Zuckerberg. These are people that are universally known by a large set of people. And some liberals love those names, and some liberals hate those names, and some conservatives love, and some conservatives hate those names. But explain to me what's happening right now. Explain for us the context of somebody like a Putin or a Musk, or how do they fit into our own, even though these are people, frankly, I don't know either of those people. I've never met either of those people. Somehow they're in our field of vision, and they're part of our identity. They're part of our narratives. They're part of who we are.
Yeah. So there's powerful identities now, left, right, red, blue. And I think what draws those identities together is a sense of what the threats are in the world and a sense of who the victims are. And, we are the victims in our mind more than we're the perpetrators, right? We morally typecast ourselves as righteous victims suffering from the evil policies of someone else. Now, the interesting thing about these kind of figures is that many people think of them as villains, but I think they often think of themselves as victims. And that drives people who like them to feel like victims too, right? So Putin, has famously said, talk about this in the book, how he is a victim. He's a victim of the West. He's a victim of these conspiracies. I mean, he went to war against an innocent country and killed ex-KGB officers in hospitals in foreign governments, right? Like he did all sorts of terrible things. And he says, look, I'm the victim here. And so I think what that highlights, one, is the power of victimhood, or at least its expression to draw people together. And two, how victimhood is a matter of perception, right? Like you can get people who survived the Holocaust think of themselves as less of a victim than Putin or than someone who got, their order messed up at Starbucks.
It's manipulative though, right? It's a little sociopathic, right?
Sometimes. I mean, I think in Putin's case, there's no question. But I think in some other cases, people can feel legitimately jilted by some bad thing that happened to them, even if it was relatively minor, we might agree, kind of objectively speaking. But here's the weird thing, right? Like, what does it mean to be objectively suffering? Some people can put their hand in a hole with bullet ants, right, and feel like the worst pain imaginable and kind of shrug it off. And other people can, stub their toe and think it's like a conspiracy against them to make them feel pain. So it's a lot of it is in our mind.
Right. Well said. I've had Robert Greene, the legendary author of the 48 Laws of Power, on the show, and he talks about victimhood. And he doesn't like victimhood much. His theory is that we shouldn't that self-pity is one of our worst traits. We have to get out of the self-pity and get out of the self-doubt that comes with self-pity and quote unquote not play the victim. How do you react to that?
I think it's a fair point, and I think we'd probably be better off if we're not wallowing in self-pity. At the same time, it's just the facts of the matter that our moral convictions are about victimhood. And one of the most powerful motivating forces in politics, right, and interpersonal relations is about feelings of victimhood. And so we shouldn't revel in it, but at the same time, right, if someone says something to you, makes you feel victimized, if someone hurts you, that's going to kind of fill your consciousness and you're going to have to react to it. So I think it's easier said than done.
We need the other side, don't we? Meaning, the world would be pretty, let's say we all agreed on everything. But that seems like a blander world, no? I know we like similar people, but we also like to fight a little bit, though, too. No, you write about it a little bit in the book, right? You say that we may actually need the other side. Explain that. Explain what you mean by that.
I mean, America was founded as a pluralistic democracy, right? And it's messy. They say like democracy is the worst form of government except for every other form of government, right? Mm-hmm. It's messy, but I think that messiness is why it's good. We have to kind of compromise and go between kind of two solutions. Jefferson said we needed a party of progress and a party of tradition. And so that navigating that kind of tension, I think, is really good for America and for us. And when you just have one party, well, you've got a dictatorship. You've got China, you've got Soviet Russia. And so even if we don't like the fact that we have to fight most of the time, I think it's better for us. Except today you mentioned, right, there's kind of a shift. We're unwilling to have these conversations, but I think we're better off when we do and we find the kind of middle ground.
What is the best way to have a civil conversation with someone who sees the world completely different from the way you see it?
I'll tell you what's not the best way, and that's throwing facts at them. We ran a study, we asked people, what should another person do who disagrees with you? What should they use in a conversation to make you respect them? And everyone says, I want them to give me the facts. We say, great, here are some facts. Here are those facts. And they say, those are not facts. I don't like those facts. Those are not real facts. And that's because we live in different media ecosystems. Your facts are not my facts. Your facts are fake facts. It turns out the best way to have conversations is by using personal stories to reveal how your concerns about an issue are grounded in personal harm. So I may be pro-gun rights because my mom used a gun to defend ourselves, our family, from a home invader. Right? That's a story. You can understand how I'm trying to avoid harm, how I'm trying to escape victimization. And that's much better than me throwing statistics at you from Fox News or NPR. Mm-hmm.
What's the best outcome for us? Like, what do you see in the next decade? Are we a society that's more divided? Are we a society that can be put back together? Give us a sense for the future. Predict the future for us.
Yeah, so we've been getting more divided for a long time. And I guess as a psychologist and a scientist, the best predictor of the future is the recent past. Doesn't make me happy to think that or say that. At the same time, there's also breaking points that people reach in history. And so I like to think that we are reaching a breaking point where people are fed up with being divided. They're exhausted with yelling at each other, and they want a government that works. Mm-hmm. And so part of what's going to happen depends on the next 4 years, obviously. Mm-hmm. But if people feel like there's just too much tension, too much chaos, they'll yearn for more conversation, more stability, more conversation about each other and about finding common ground is a hope.
All right. So we're at the point in this podcast where I've come up with my producer 5 words, and I want you to react to those 5 words. Give me something, a sentence, a thought, something comes to mind. If I use the word harm, what do you think of?
I think of perception. We often think of harm as something that's obvious and objective, but people can disagree about what's most harmful. And this is what underlies our most, vicious debates.
Okay. If I say the word politics, you say what?
I'll say something that divides Americans today because of our moral disagreement. But politics is more than just moral disagreement, right? It's about the kind of systems and institutions that are built on that are really pulling us apart and really giving us a sense of us versus them. We used to be able to say, we disagree about this. Let's have a beer. Let's figure it out. Politics is what makes that harder than ever.
Mm-hmm. What if I say morality?
Something that evolved to help us live together in groups. So we were preyed upon as a species by wild animals, predators. We moved into groups together to protect ourselves. But then the biggest threat is other people trying to hurt us, trying to harm us, trying to kill us, trying to steal from us. We developed a sense of morality to make sure that we could live together in relative harmony, and that we could get angry at people who fail to cooperate. We'd kick them out of our group. We punish them. So morality is our psychological sense to enable us to live together.
What if I say the word division?
Undeniably true in today's political climate, but not as fundamental or as deep as we think. Most everyday Americans don't disagree on issues as much as they think they do. And there's actually a lot more space for agreement than we recognize. We overestimate our political disagreement by up to 200 or 300%. Whereas if you really get into what people believe, the space of disagreement, at least for everyday people, reasonable people, is actually pretty small.
Outraged. Say the word outraged.
One, a great book, but more importantly, something that we're really experiencing today. In part, social media really amplifies these feelings because they capture our attention, because it gets us to do things, to click, to write back angrily. But I think, it's many ways bad, especially when it's so overpowering, but it can be good too. Outrage can motivate us to change our social circumstances, to appeal to politicians, to try to make the world a better place. So when it's too much, it's bad, but there's a right amount of outrage too, and it motivates change.
Listen, it's been a great conversation with you. I think you're onto something here, and I love the optimism. I love the optimistic message in the book. The title of the book is Outraged: Why We Fight About Morality and Politics and How to Find Common Ground. Professor Kurt Gray, a professor of psychology and neuroscience at UNC Chapel Hill. Thank you so much for joining us today on Open Book.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, that was great.